Hello, everyone. Long time no talk. It is Jeff Levac here with you, and of course, head coach of the Albany Empire, Tom Menas. We hope to be joined by National Arena League Commissioner Chris Siegfried, but of course, some team in upstate New York might have dropped a bomb across his desk yesterday too. Could have happened. He might be a little busy.
Yeah, he's a little busy, I think. Yeah.
So we're hoping to have him join us today. But basically,
he just messaged me. He's coming on now. So.
Oh, perfect. I will say that this is perfect timing on this. Not only are there some variations to old rules to new rules being implemented this year in the National Arena League, but I did see some interest online. People asking like, when will we be able to see the it right away, because these are the differences to it. So the 2022 rule book plus what we're going to discuss today.
You're freezing up a little bit. I don't know.
As soon as possible. Yeah, somebody kicked the internet over here. I just saw it come and go. So we're good now. We're joined by Commissioner of the National Arena League, Chris Siegfried. What's up, Commish? How you doing?
Good morning. How you guys doing?
Just another calm day in the Capital Region. Nothing new. Nothing to report.
What a great day yesterday, huh?
So I wanted, of course, we think of how great it's going to be for the Albany Empire to have a guy like Antonio Brown and Touchdown Eddie Brown, back in the fold, and what it brings to us. What was your day like yesterday?
It was pretty cool. It was an awesome day. Of course, I've known Eddie Brown for a long time. I honestly didn't realize he'd remember me, but I guess he's a living legend as far as arena football is concerned. And I didn't talk to AB yet, but when I was coaching in Pittsburgh a few years ago, he was with the Steelers, and I just remember his work ethic back then and what a gifted receiver he was. So, I did send out a tweet a couple weeks ago when there was some stuff going on about some videos circulating with Touchdown Eddie Brown, and I kind of was jabbing at, hey, AB, you'd make a pretty good OS, I think. So,
I'm not gonna lie, that was part of the catalyst that got this going. Right. Is we all saw that, we started playing along too, and next thing you know, as the kids say, we slid into each other's DMs, and now we're dating.
So when I look at someone. I don't know where to go with that one.
We're not dating, Chris. We're not dating anymore. Now we're married.
That's right. I'm sorry. I haven't slept in 4 days.
Right. The little bit I know about Antonio has just been the work ethic, and he. When I first saw him practice at the Pittsburgh Steelers training facility there in downtown Pittsburgh on the south side there at UPMC's training facility. I just kept salivating, thinking, God, I'd love to coach him in arena football. He's so good because he was just so quick and such a perfectionist on his route running, and a lot of the routes that they were running with the Steelers at the time had some arena kind of flair to it with the stems up. When I say the stem to the people that
Pocos, yeah,
just the way he came off the line of scrimmage, just stem in and attack leverage and all that other stuff. I was just like, wow, he's pretty incredible. Now, granted, that was 12 years ago. And I'm sure probably one of the reasons he's not playing is his body's probably beat to hell. But in all seriousness, having those guys on board, especially up in Albany, is just, I think it's incredible for the Empire and incredible for the league. I did see a couple comments out there. Well, it's not the Firebirds. And I'm like, I felt like saying, well, we own that IP as well. So it could have been the Firebirds, but the Capital Region kind of embraced the Empire name, and it kind of fits with the state. So as you guys know, we were tinkering, you guys were tinkering between going back to the Albany Firebirds name versus the Albany Empire. But the Empire, when they first came back in the Arena Football League, I thought they did a great job of rebranding it to the Empire. Of course, they didn't have the option to do the Firebirds, but so that's kind of why I kept the Firebirds. So, who knows? Maybe there's another city that gets the Firebirds name that, in the future. And
we know who they have to call to get it.
Yeah.
So, no, but it was exciting. You're always going to have the you know, the good and the bad on social media. You know, as everybody knows, I pretty much do all of my research. Whenever I need facts, I go to the internet and I go to social media to make sure I know what I'm doing. If there's ever an issue, I go to Twitter and find out the answer. And, you know, so anyway,
Well,
all kidding aside, it's
yeah,
I'm excited about it because, I mean,
right. Chris, I got to interrupt you.
Sure.
I've been in this league now since 2021. We're going into 2023. Yesterday, I heard not only the Albany Empire name, but I heard the National Arena League name on TMZ, ESPN, Sports Illustrated, Fox News, MSNBC. Every major outlet throughout the United States was talking about the National Arena League. So, you know, one of the things that this did was it was part selfish, part unselfish. Part selfish is we want to always look out for the 518. The unselfish part is teams like Orlando, Jacksonville, Carolina, West Texas, San Antonio, all of them benefit from what happened yesterday.
100%.
All of them do.
100%.
I think I can speak for Mike Corda when I say, though, it was completely selfish, and we're going to just send the trophy here. I think that's what he would say.
So
we would say that anyway.
Yeah, you know, I was with some real estate clients in the morning, and I get an email from TMZ, and I'm like, what the heck? I'm like, why is TMZ? I didn't realize they have a sports department, but apparently they do. And
a big sports department,
you know, and that was around 9:45, 10 o'clock or so, I guess. So I'm in a real estate closing, and I'm on my phone. I'm like, and every once in a while they catch me giggling, and they're looking at me. I'm just like, oh, because I was watching the press conference, and then afterwards I had to let my clients in because I didn't want to be rude. But I'm literally like, like watching, trying to work. But no, it's fun. You know, I'm not on social media as much as I used to be. You know, for me, it's pretty much just Twitter and still trying to figure out Instagram. I had to get off TikTok because I'd be sitting in my bed till 3 a.m. laughing, watching videos. And it was screwing up my sleep schedule. So,
going forward, one of the things that you and I had talked about, you and I, along with Coach Gibson, Steve Kerr, Joe Clarkston, are on the rules committee.
Yes.
And competition committee, rules and competition committee for the National Arena League. And in that, it started kind of in October when we had the owners meetings, that we wanted to tweak our game a bit, just enough to be innovative, but not go away from the roots of our game, right? So over those course of those months, we've had conversations. Coach Gibson and I have talked about some different things. You and I have talked about Joe Clarkston. We've talked. And what we wanted to do today was last night at roughly 5 p.m., the owners voted these new rule changes or addendums into our game. And I thought what a great forum this would be for you to explain and us to talk about not only the rule, but how it affects coaches. I'll give that perspective on what we're trying to do. And Jeff can give his perspective from the flow of the game, because he basically is our voice on game day. So all those things come into play when all these rules were selected, and to make our game not only continue to be the only true arena football, but also that we're innovative enough that in 2023, we knew that it had to be tweaked just a little bit.
So yes, a lot of little things going on, a lot of big things going on, obviously. But when it pertains to the rules and the meeting we had yesterday, and this is all a culmination of the stuff that the Rules and Competition Committee, we all put together collectively. And so for the fans to know that when we look at rules and tweaks to rules, there's a couple factors involved. One, simplification for the officiating. Some stuff is just common sense, right? And other aspects of it is we're trying to dial in on a 3-hour game. We want games less than 3 hours. We don't like the 4-hour game unless it's an overtime, barn burner, playoff game, whatever. We understand games are going to go longer than 3 hours, but an average game should not be 3 hours and 45 minutes in our league. So we're doing a lot of things to streamline the game. So the simple stuff is we'll cover first, right? We're tweaking the challenges in the replay to cut down that flow to make it, the average replay was like 4 or 5 minutes. The goal is to be, 1 minute on a replay situation. So stuff like that. We have some stuff in play that the fans won't notice. We're going to have a replay official that's going to be monitoring each game. Fans won't really notice that, but that's all in an effort to cut down on that part of the game. As far as the stuff that's going to be more noticeable, we have these big structures coming back. Something I've been fighting for since inception. Matter of fact, I'm talking about the rebound nets. When we first got Albany Empire on board, I'm sitting there like, it's the same game. And all I kept hearing about was, but you don't have the nets. Except for the nets. It's the same game, which it was. But that I've been fighting for that for years. And we finally got a feasible solution to where everybody can have the rebound nets. So when you bring back the rebound nets, we're adding a new rule, but it's really the reintroduction of an old rule, which is the 5-yard halo rule on kickoffs and field goals.
But in respect, so people can understand, because some end zones are larger than others, some this. Right. So we're saying the 5-yard line now, correct?
Correct.
So the physical 5-yard line cannot be penetrated until the ball has been received by the
either touched by the return team,
touched
or hit the ground,
right? Or hit the ground,
or if it bounces back past 5 yards on the fly, all rules are off.
Right.
So once one of those aspects happens, all rules are off. The reality of it is the only time the halo rule really comes into play is on shorter field goals. That's really the only time that the halo rule really becomes an issue, because on most kickoffs, I don't know the percentage, but let's call it 95 to 99% of kickoffs, the ball hits the net, comes down. The receiving team doesn't have to slow down, or the kicking team doesn't have to slow down. So that's just a protection of the player, gives them an opportunity to catch it. But the only time it's really going to come into effect is going to be on field goals, short field goals.
Right. So
that's a pretty easy one.
So the way also in conjunction with the 5-yard halo rule, the walls of the end zone now.
The walls are dead,
completely dead. If in fact a kicker was able to kick the ball over the net but not make a deuce, the ball then
goes to the 10. So the other part of the kicking game changes. Most of our changes are kicking game related, right? Mm-hmm. So on all kicking plays, whether on a kickoff, whether the kicker gets the deuce, which we're keeping the deuce, mm-hmm. Ball goes to the upright, worth 2 points to the kicking team. If he misses the deuce, it rebounds off the net, the ball's live. But if it goes over the nets, under the nets, or outside the nets, or even through the uprights, the ball is going to be placed universally at the 10-yard line. It's not going to be 5-yard line for some things, 20-yard line for other things. The ball gets placed at the 10-yard line on all kicks that are not possessed. Obviously, if they're possessed, right, it's going to go out to wherever it's returned. The caveat is, which obviously you were leading me to this, anytime a kickoff is kicked outside the uprights, left or right, not above, not below, but outside the uprights, this means kicking it out of bounds, the receiving team is awarded 1 point. That's the big change.
And the ball's placed on the
10-yard line. The
right.
ball's placed outside of a penalty or a possessed ball, it's placed at the 10-yard line all the time.
Now, obviously, when we were talking about these, and Jeff, you weren't privy to this conversation, but like I said to Chris, obviously, as a defensive-minded coach, I love the ball being placed on the 10 versus the 20, almost midfield. Okay, that's one. The fact that if you kick the ball out of bounds and the other team's awarded a point and the ball's placed on the 10, I'm all for that as well, because strategically, all you coaches listening, you may want to purposefully do that in a certain situation rather than risk a return when maybe you're leading by 5 or 6 points in a game with little time left. So it brings in coaching strategy, but it also creates flow of the game, because now the whole purpose of bringing back the nets, as Chris has fought diligently for, is so we see that special teams is an integral part of our game. I said on the show a couple of weeks ago, I can foresee 3 touchdowns a game coming just out of the nets for teams.
Absolutely. And when we looked at last year's kicking game situation, we had a combination of factors that led teams to kick the ball out of bounds on a regular basis. And I think it was terrible for the game.
The Menas rule.
Now,
the Menas rule now, correct?
But so the fans are aware. Right. The biggest issue we had was the supplier of our footballs. We had a bunch of, let's call them supply chain issues. We were able to secure a ball that looked the same, felt the same from a receiver and DB and quarterback standpoint, performed the same, but from a kicking standpoint, it was not a good football. Kickers were losing 10 yards plus on their length of their kickoffs, and it was a problem. And
mention something about the ball this year then.
So we're going back to the football that we had the years previous. Now we're going to stick with the white football because it's grippier. We like it better.
Right.
We just have the white football as opposed to the oatmeal. I don't know what the official color of the other football was, but
we all called it the honey ball.
Honey ball, oatmeal colored honey ball, whatever you want to call it. It's the same manufacturer that we had in years past. So the performance of the ball we know is proven. We've had the football for years and years and years. So we don't anticipate having any kicking game issues as far as reaching the rebound nets for the average kicker.
So we talked about a full kickoff. We talked about the rules of the dead wall in the back in the end zone. We talked about out, over, under. The Uno is still around as well. So if the receiving team gets tackled with possession of the ball in their own end zone, the kickoff team would receive 1 point and the ball would be placed on the 10 as well, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so that's still in play. Can you explain to everyone listening now, the only caveat is the onside kick? So
on an onside kick situation, okay, or any kick that doesn't get to at least the 10-yard line, where number one, wherever it goes out of bounds, if it goes out of bounds, is where the ball is going to be spotted. If it goes out of bounds over the wall, untouched, the receiving team gets a point. So let's take an onside kick situation, and thanks, Jeff. Let's take an onside kick situation, the pop-up kick, all right, which is a popular onside kick. The kicker drives the ball into the turf, pops it way up, and let's say it goes out of bounds untouched. Well, that's a point for the receiving team. If it is not touched and the ball goes out of bounds, the receiving team gets a point.
Again, these rules are designed so we have the action of a kick return.
100%. It's designed to keep the football in the field of play.
Right.
So, now.
Just get real quick. We got a quick question just to clarify. Steve wants to know, so we're not using a different kicking ball this year. It will be the same ball throughout the whole game. This ball will be used.
Yes.
For kicking and for gameplay.
Yes, everybody's using the same football. There is no kicker ball versus playing ball. It was a total unfortunate situation.
Right.
Last year, an unavoidable situation due to supply chain issues. And, the consistency of the kick should be back.
Right. So the good news is, again, same ball on everything that we do. So onside kicks we covered, pooch kicks we've covered, the returns off the net or above the net, below the net, to the sides of the net. I think that clarifies it for everybody now that they understand, players, coaches, fans. I love the universal, everything going to the 10 on those situations we discussed. As a defensive-minded coach, I love that, rather than the ball coming out to midfield. So, yeah, all those are great. Was there anything else relative to the nets or oh, I have one. To all the players listening, if you grab the net, if you hang, if you do a dunk thing and hold on to it, trust me, your team will be fined so excessively for that action that you probably won't be on that team after that act.
As will the player.
So, guys, I'm telling you now, as players, it's not something you hang on. It's not something that it's dangerous, and it's also
safety.
Foolish. Yeah,
it's a safety concern. We just don't need it happening. So, some other minor tweaks to some existing stuff that's going on is, like, for example, we talked about substitutions, 2 parts. So for the fans that are probably aware that maybe don't know, one of them is this. We have added a third specialist to offense and defense, and we're calling it the offensive line specialist on offense and the defensive line specialist on defense. So, you have 3 specialists now. 2 of them can be anywhere on offense, but one has to be a lineman offensively and defensively. Now, your offensive line specialist can only play offense and special teams. Your defensive line specialist can only play defense and special teams. They cannot play the other side of the ball. And this rule is intended for a couple of reasons. One, offensively, it's all about protecting the quarterback. And we want to make sure that, you're always having that at least one stud offensive lineman on the field at all times. I think from a defensive standpoint, now we're opening up the doors for those guys that maybe they weren't really built for the Ironman game, or maybe they're just a 6'5", 250-pound pass rusher that's so valuable on defense, you really don't want them playing offense. There's a lot of different reasons for that, but it allows us to still recruit the best of both worlds in pass rushers and all around, versatile linemen. I'm not built like a lineman, but I have a lineman's heart, lineman's coaching philosophy. I always built my teams starting with the line, knowing that if I had a really good line, I was going to win games. Yep. I don't want to say it's easier to get skilled players,
but there's more of them.
It's just very difficult to get a great lineman.
Right.
And the guys that are both athletic and big, right. And those guys are special. They're special to me. They're special. I know they're special to you, Coach. And they're the heartbeat of any team, any great team in any level of football. If they're good, they have a good offensive line, and if they're good on defense, they probably have a very good pass rush.
100%. And you're right. Especially from a defensive standpoint, it's that tweener. It's that 260-pound, 6'4" lineman that you just don't want to put in a position to have to be blocking, but he coming off the edge, he's special, or that really big 320-pound, 6'5", 6'6" nose guard that is so, valuable to you on what he does that you don't want to have to, again, dilute, I will say, his skill set in having to do more than what he should. Right. So, yeah, we're excited about that this year. I've gotten a lot of calls from my players. Hey, Coach, I think I'd make a great O-line. Hey, Coach, I'd make a great D-line as a specialist. And I always say the same thing, is that I think the smarter coaches around the league are going to rotate that position and save some legs around the year. I know that if I could, in one game, have Cornelius Lewis be a specialist for a game after maybe 4 or 5 games, and let him have a game to just play one side of the ball, and then the next week he's got to go both ways. So that those things are great, because I think they also prevent injury.
Absolutely. I was going to say it's going to be a good way if you got a guy banged up to kind of rest or get healthy.
Because linemen play no matter what.
Right.
Well,
Along those same lines with the substitutions, another thing that should be an unnoticeable change to the fans, and something that we did, because I went around every arena and kind of coached up the substitution officials. We were tweaking the game and putting them in different positions, making sure that they knew what was going on. The only real issues that I experienced firsthand was some teams have jerseys that it's hard to read the numbers from across the field. And I mean, I was having trouble looking at the numbers, and that's difficult. So one of the things we're tweaking with our substitutions is we're going to be like all the other sports in respect to the players have to check in before they come in. And that's going to eliminate any of the substitution infractions that we experienced, and that we didn't experience very many.
No, but I had one. I had one going against.
But it was one of very few that happened.
Yeah, right. But I had one, and part of that was the player went in on his own, versus checking. We hadn't looked, we hadn't checked him off, and he had went in on his own. And then when he came out, we didn't realize that. And I'm adamantly arguing the point: was it our fault? 100%. It was my fault. It was the player's fault. But by checking in, we use the analogy like a basketball game, where the players have to check in with the check-in counter,
Right.
as far as the official, and say, hey, I'm going in. I think that will eliminate any chance of player error, coach's error.
Absolutely. And it's honestly, when we thought about the rule, I was just looking at it as like, why didn't we do this back in the day? And it just makes total sense. If you look at volleyball, if you look at soccer, basketball, they check in with the official. Everybody checks in with the official. So,
and it takes the heat off of us too.
And really, you don't have to worry about monitoring it in the situation that we were in, because I was actually at that game and part of the, I was also part of the problem in that particular game. This eliminates it. Right. And the other part of it, because we're going to have a coaches meeting, as on Monday to discuss all these rules, is I'm going to go over with the coaches that, hey, keep your players off the field. If they're not in the game, keep them off the field. Right. When they check in, they check in. And if they don't check in, if they're in there illegally, it's going to be a penalty.
Right. Right.
Well, especially linemen are used to saying like, I'm eligible, I'm not eligible, I'm this, I'm that. So there is some precedent already, even in our game, to check in when you're coming in.
Right. And it's all about, we don't want that delay where you're questioning a substitution. We want the game flow to continue. Right. We want all these things that we're doing. We want it to be seamless. We want to simplify the game for the officials. We want to speed up the game for the fans. We want the show to be less interrupted and more show and less dead time. Of course we have the music and all that stuff, but I'm talking dead time within the game, penalties. We want to speed up the extracurricular and be more about the entertainment.
Our friends over Inside the Walls asked question: what about injuries on players that come in as a sub?
What about them?
I think they're asking, you come in as a sub, you get hurt. Are you, does it burn the person who comes in for the next? I'm trying to make sense of it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, and that's part of managing your roster, and let's give an example. Let's say Darius Prince is a two-way player, and he starts the quarter, he comes out, and Terrell Owens comes in. Joe Smith backup comes in for Darius, and on the first play he gets hurt. So you can bring Darius back in because he started the quarter. But once that receiver that gets hurt and comes out, he's done for that quarter, just for that quarter. Right. Now that's when you have to have, you have to look at your players and make sure they know multiple positions, and but that's when coaching and managing your roster comes into play. It's like I'm a big Michael Jordan Chicago Bulls fan, one thing about Jordan was they would pace him in the first three quarters, and they'd make sure he got his minutes off, and teams would come back, and games would be close. But in the fourth quarter, you better believe those last 8-10 minutes of the game, Michael Jordan was full tilt, he was in there. So, but they couldn't do that the whole game. They had to pace him. So, our substitution rules are such that, when you get dinged up, or if you're out of shape and you pull a muscle, you're hurting the rest of the team. And as a coaching staff, you have to manage your guys and know what guys' capabilities are.
Well, you could do it the way we do it. Like with Hollins last year, he said, "Coach, I rolled my ankle." I said, "Yeah, okay. So you're a lineman. We don't come out. Just keep playing."
Well, anyway, let's talk about some other rules.
There's that, and it's
He was a stud,
nurturing.
though. I tell you, there was some games when I was amazed with his ability to play both sides of the ball. He was a good.
You know what? For a guy who if you saw him on the street, you wouldn't think it. He doesn't necessarily always pass the eye test. We'll say that, right? But what an athlete, what a warrior. And I'm kidding about the other stuff, but it's true though. Linemen, you almost have to drag off the field, and you get some specialists or some guys that well, Darius same way. Darius won't come off the field unless you put a gun to his head, and then he'd probably say, "I dare you to pull the trigger." So no, we're good. Okay, so substitutions, that really cleared that up. I got down here, let's see, on my notes. Let's talk about the 1 minute rule.
Oh yeah. So again, we're tweaking the 1 minute rule only in the effort to speed up games that are, let's say, not close.
Yeah,
So,
and also safety at that point.
Absolutely. We had a few games where the last minute went on forever, and you had challenges, and it's like, come on, guys, you're getting beat by 30 points. Let's get out of here, right? So we are, and Coach, I really had to get on board with this one, and it took me a while because I'm kind of an old school purist, and I kept thinking of trying to put the coach's hat on. But here's basically what we did is inside of a minute of the fourth quarter, if the team with the ball is up by 25 or more points, they don't have to get forward progress to keep the clock running.
Basically, they can take a knee.
Basically, they could take a knee. So now, obviously, if the defense has timeouts, they could use their timeouts. But, we want to make it 3 possessions. Obviously, with the deuce and 2-point conversions and stuff like that, 20 points was still 2 possessions. 21 just is an odd number. We just let's just make it an even 25 points. And, if we have to tweak it during the season, we'll tweak it during the season. But this is what we're starting with. So Albany's playing the Canton Rebels, team that doesn't exist. They're playing whatever. You're playing whatever team. You're up by 25 points, and you've got the ball. It's second down. The 1 minute warning just went off, and it's second down and 5, whatever. And you take a knee. And the other team doesn't have any timeouts. The clock will continue to run. So now, if you're up by 24 points, you still have to get that forward progress.
Right.
Or 23 or 22. Or if you're up 10, or if it's inside of 25 points, you still have to get forward progress to keep the clock moving.
And we talked about that, though, Chris, too. We talked about, I know Coach Gibson and I had a lot of conversation about this, is that we ran through a bunch of different scenarios that could happen in 60 seconds, especially with the nets, right? And realistically, I was good at 20 points if it was a 20-point spread. And I think we ran a scenario and we said, well, wait a minute, if we did this and we did that, and we went for 2, we kicked up, so we came up with 25 with the understanding that at 25 at that point, let's wrap the game up.
Game's pretty much out of reach.
Right.
Yeah, let's watch player safety. Let's not have any fights. Let's not have any, guys going to try to knock the ball out, doing certain things on a 1-yard run. And that's the real reason, is that at the end of the day, it makes sense to, if we're worrying about the speed of the game on kickoff and substitutions, we should also worry about, because our last minute takes forever in our league. So
yeah, and basically on closer games, it's still going to take a little while. But
yeah, but that's fine because it's being competitive. Right.
And we reserve the right from a league standpoint after we, experience this a little bit where we might reduce it down to 21 points or whatever.
Right.
But we want to start with a number that's high enough that even the average fan would be like, all right, this game's pretty much over. The coach and me can come up with a scenario where 25 points isn't enough, but I don't want to be in that scenario.
Right.
You know what I mean? It's just like it's a very, very, very rare scenario. From a coaching standpoint, I remember being down. Let's see, it was 45-14. My team was down 06, the year that I won a championship. I was at home. We were getting booed. And we scored to make it 45-21. And I onside kicked. It was like 20 seconds to go in the game. And the other coach looked at me and I'm like, score if you can. And they did. We lost 52-20. I think it's 52-20. And but if the rule was we're down 25 points and I don't have the ball, I get it. But if I have the ball, I can still control the outcome of the game. But if I don't have the ball and I'm down 25, it's like, all right, everything has to be perfect. The stars have to align. Right. And I got to get the bounces and I've got to score and I've got to. And if I'm already down 25 points, I've probably been having trouble scoring that game anyway. So,
no, I've coached a game where we were down and we scored 17 points in like 20 seconds, and it was all based on the nets. The nets were the key, right? Oh, I have one more. I want to go back to the nets for a second because I know some fans are going to ask this question. So I have the ball and I'm on the 10-yard line going in. Or no, let's take it and make it a little bit more ridiculous. I'm on the 20 going in, but it's 4th and 12, okay, to get in. I can throw the ball off the net to my receiver to make a play, correct?
Yes.
So what you want to do, you want to remember, fans, is that when you see that, the ball's not dead when it hits the net. It's another Hail Mary type play that's available to our quarterbacks and receivers. Tell them the part about pass interference.
And there's no pass interference. Once that ball hits net, all rules are off. It's like the fake handoff, play action pass in our game. All restrictions on the defense are off.
So you're going to see some very cool end of quarter, end of game type plays. Yeah.
Back when I was coaching, we used to kind of throw it kind of low on the net because it would bounce back further.
Right. Go back out further. Right.
But every receiver wasn't 6'5" back then. So,
right.
So now these guys, the small receivers now, still have a couple 5'8", 5'10" guys. But for the most part, these young men are really, really big nowadays. I'm thinking about that kid down in Orlando who's 6'5". Even Darius is not a big receiver. He's still 6'1".
Yep.
I mean, he's a big receiver, but he's not a big receiver. You know what I mean? He's a great sized kid.
Well, I could see like Cruz being a guy that we would use for.
Coach, I'm going to the Patroons game tonight. I'll find out whoever the rim protector is for them. I'll recruit him.
Point being is like, if you're going to throw it low off the net, you know what I mean? Even the DBs are getting bigger. You know what I mean? You're seeing some 6'1", 6'2" DBs on a regular basis. But yeah, throw the ball, creams off the net, no pass interference. It's actually a relatively high percentage Hail Mary type of play. Right. That, to me, I like that better than just chucking it into the end zone because you can practice certain angles off the net and kind of anticipate which way the ball is going to go.
Right.
Not that you guys are going to spend time practicing throwing the ball off the net, but it adds an aspect to our game that is kind of unique. Now, another part of it too that fans, well, we didn't really discuss this at the meeting, but we're going to allow this because our team in West Texas has a brand new set of rebound nets that came from overseas, rebound frames that came from overseas. And the natural color of these before they get painted is silver. And it looks really, really cool.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to mandate that teams keep the uprights and the crossbar have to be yellow, have to be that yellow, just like the outdoor game, just like they have been. But in an effort to allow teams the flexibility to paint them team colors, get a sponsor, let's say you have XYZ sponsor and their company colors are orange, for lack of a better description. Well, you can paint the rest of the uprights orange and the uprights will be yellow. So for West Texas, they're going to start off with the stainless steel aluminum frames with the uprights of yellow. It just looks really, really cool. And we're hoping to open up the door for either individual team sponsors or, a league-wide sponsor that wants to invest and put their colors around the uprights.
Sponsors, I'll tell you what, I can tell you thousands of football games I watched where when a field goal was kicked, I read the All-State logo in the end zone as the net came up to catch the ball. You have 2 net opportunities for sponsorship on both sides of the goalposts.
Yep.
I'll tell you what, if I was an advertiser, I would find a way to get my logo on there. I would.
Well, let's face it, when you come to our games, and it happened to me back in 1992, the first time I walked in the O Arena in Orlando. I was a member of the Predators, albeit I rode the bench all year because they were really good. Back in the Eddie Brown days, I had to deal with the Barry Wagner down here in Orlando, and he was better. But when I went in there first time, now I'm coming from a Division II college. I was practicing outdoors with Orlando. But when you walk in that arena and you see the field, you're like, okay, how do you play football in here? But the first thing you look at is those rebound nets. It's like it's hard to describe. The people in Albany, obviously, they know because it was only a few short years ago that they had these rebound nets. But to some venues and to some people, they've never seen that before. When they see these nets, it's just an incredible part of the game.
I always say it gives you that Coliseum effect.
Absolutely.
And you understand it's the nature of our game, gladiator football, going both ways, Iron Man. Now you got the nets and it's all encapsulated, on 50 yards. And it's really spectacular. It's going to be
to the smart fans out there. And I know the Albany is spoiled with very intelligent arena fans.
Right.
They know that now those corner seats are at a premium because that's where some errant passes go. That's where some errant kicks go. Those are premium seats. Those few seats underneath the upright behind the wall are premium seats. Those are the hot spots if you want a football.
There you go.
Just outside the net. Plus the viewing from those corners is usually really good.
So I think we've kind of went through. Oh, there was one other, the halo tackle rule that you want to clarify.
So on the halo rule, right? You have the opportunity to catch the ball, but if the ball.
No. I'm talking about the tackle.
Oh, the horse collar.
Sorry. The halo around the neck.
We technically didn't have the horse collar rule in place, but again, a common sense player safety. Horse collar tackling is a penalty. So
in the past, it's been from behind. The NFL is implementing this too, guys. So getting tackled from behind, you tend to have some leg injuries because the legs are bent back. You have some low back injuries. What I had done some research in what the NFL is going to now to even help alleviate more injury is that if you grab inside the shoulder pads anywhere around the neck, and you pull down, and that's what they call that hip tackle, where you grab the side and you drop your hip and you pull the guy down. So anything around the neck, front, sides, or back, where your hand is inside the shoulder pads pulling down is going to be a penalty. That's going to be part of the horse collar.
Yeah, I believe so. I'll double check with our supervisors officials, but I think that's what we discussed.
I know
any tackle with the shoulder pad.
Right.
Horse collar is going to be a penalty.
In the neck area. Right. So, and again, I know all the other coaches around the league, as much as we love all the things, we love the nets, we love the great turf. We love the dasher boards. We love all that. Our biggest asset is our players. And not only our asset, that's we wouldn't have jobs without those guys. And I want to do everything in my power to protect them as well as we can. That doesn't mean I don't want them to play hard, nasty, and violent. Of course I do. But not get hurt on something that's easily fixable in our game. We're not in the business of hurting players for fan entertainment. The way we keep fan entertained is by keeping our players healthy and on the field for the entire season. And I think that's what all of us as coaches are striving for. And I think these new rules speed up the game and they protect the players. And I think they're great this year. I'm really excited about what we have. Chris, was there anything else that you wanted to cover in relationship to any of the rules? I know I had one question from Dave, our super fan. He was asking me, when would this new rule book, because every year you're good enough to put the rule book online, when will this 2023 rule book be online available to fans?
So great question. I've been working with our supervisor officials and our assistant supervisor of officials just to update stuff because we've got some nuances in there with the replay. We have some money being injected into the league for the training and improvement of the officiating. And I've been working in conjunction with those guys. I'm hoping to have it for the coaches and the teams next week, but it'll be up probably – I don't want to set myself up for failure, but sometime during camp.
Okay, perfect.
And my biggest issue with when I put the rule book being public is grammatical errors really bothers me. And it's like whenever I see one, I'm like, oh, even though I go do the spell check and all that stuff, what the fans need to understand is, our league office is, although it's pretty expansive and we've got a lot of people running around, it's really me and owners. I mean, we don't have an actual physical league office. I work out of my house or my real estate office. The executives like Mike, he works out of his office, wherever that is up in Albany. So, all this is, created so that we can keep our costs down, so that we can keep our tickets affordable for the great fans in our league. So, we're doing everything we can to get it up and completed and updated. We've got a lot of new rules to put in there. Well, not a lot, but it's a lot of new verbiage, right. And I got to double check it and match it to the ops manual and all that good stuff. But we're March 3rd. Coaches will have it next week, so I'd anticipate by the end of this month.
Perfect. Okay, I know Dave will be happy to hear that. Jeff, did you have anything?
No, I'm just ready. Like, I'm excited. I know, just like everybody else, it's we're just ready to watch National Arena League football and get sized for another ring up here in Albany. That's all.
You know what? It's gonna be a great season. It's gonna be our best season, and each season moving forward, it should be better than the season before. A lot of interest in expansion. One in the Southeast. We're trying to get another one in the Northeast. A couple of Texas cities, a couple of Midwest cities. So we have the real potential to double in size for 2024. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, I want to make a plea to any guys that are interested in ownership. Philadelphia or Pennsylvania, Maine,
Mass,
anywhere. We would love to create
we're good neighbors. We'll invite you over for a beer before we beat you. It'll be fun. A little cookout even. We'll be nice.
See, you guys wonder where I get it from.
You told me I was too soft.
Jeff is writing the paychecks. I love
it. I've been doing a few rounds with media the last couple of days, so I'm ready. Like, let's do this. Let's go.
And just and closing on that too, I want to say one thing. Remember that it's good for all of us. It's good for all of us. So when you talk to anybody or you have any conversation with anybody, like I said, in the last 24 hours, every major news outlet throughout the United States has reached out to us, and they say, the first thing they say is, and the league you're in is, and we say National Arena League, and these are the teams in it. So we're constantly pushing for, that, and I hope everybody else is. And when you have your successes, I hope you remember that and promote the entire league, not just yourselves. So
Absolutely. And as far as our league is concerned, this will be the first year that we play the game the way I've always wanted to be played. So I'm super excited about it. That means the Ironman, the nets, everything. Granted, I'm older, so I grew up around it a certain way. But even talking to Eddie Brown yesterday, he was so excited. And I was like, hey, they might still have number 17 available. He changed the subject pretty quick.
You guys, it's funny you say that, because you guys always say that, and you say, one guy said, well, you did this deal so you can dress AB. And I said, no, that's not an interest. One, I would never go to AB after what he's accomplished, 7 Pro Bowls, Super Bowl, all the things he's accomplished athletically, knowing the toll it took on his body, and say, hey, gee whiz, you want to come and play for us? Now, that being said, if we're in a playoff run,
just so you guys know, when they were doing the contracts, I jokingly looked up. I went, Mike, you slid the player contract in there too, right?
Well,
and AB looked up at me like his eyes shut up at me, and he kind of looked. He was like,
well,
we might still fit.
It's funny, because in the last 24 hours, I've been contacted by not only some very exceptional Arena Football League players, but also some NFL players to come and play for us. And the funny thing is that I don't know at this point if I would trade anyone we have on our roster for anyone that's still out there.
Nice.
I think we're that good. So it's flattering and it's nice. But again, like all the other coaches believe, we've had 8 months, 7.5 months to pick these players, hand pick them. And we all feel like we've got the best of the best. And I think guys like Antonio and Eddie and yourself, Mr. Commissioner, and all the other owners and players and coaches constantly promoting us as a league, it shuts down a lot of stuff. It shuts down a lot of verbiage. Antonio Brown and Eddie Brown could have went to other leagues or other new leagues coming, supposedly, and they chose the NAL. So I just want everyone to remember that. We're here. We're promoting. We've taken the initiative to tweak some rules for player safety, for speed of the game. We're being innovative. Now all we have to do is fill those arenas all around the league and keep supporting the teams that are here. And you'll have a National Arena League for a long, long time.
Amen.
All right. Couldn't have said it any better, Coach.
All right, guys.
Well, gentlemen, I appreciate the time. So there's the rules updates. The full rule book should be out sometime during camp, and let's do this again sometime. And I promise I'll be nicer.
All right, see you guys.
Chris, thanks so much for joining us. I appreciate you very much. And everybody, go Empire.
Go Empire.
Have a good one. See you guys.